And welcome back to the Hard to Handle Sports Podcast. This is episode number 46. Thank you so much for being here. My name's Ismael San Juan. The Lakers beat the Suns, keeping their hopes alive to take that 6th seed to not play the play-in. Also, the Knicks get an impressive win over the Clippers. The Knicks are for reals, you guys. Also, the Celtics lose to the Heat. The Heat take a 2-game advantage on the Celtics for that last playoff spot. And in the soccer world, in the football world, Real Madrid and Sevilla tied 2-2. La Liga race is still super tight. There was some controversy in that game. We'll touch on that. Manchester City and Chelsea play this weekend before their Champions League tie, and Chelsea beat them 2-1. Also, Wolves come back against Brighton, beat them 2-1. And last but not least, DK Metcalf competes in the preliminaries for the 100 meters. He does pretty good. We'll touch on DK Metcalf. All of that on this episode of the Hard to Handle Sports Podcast. Let's get started. In the NBA, the Lakers beat the Suns in an impressive win. The Lakers were tumbling. They were reeling. They were not doing well at all. Kuzma was out. LeBron was out. Schroeder was out. Playing against the second-seeded Suns, it looked like the Lakers were on their way to lose another game before the game started. A lot of people gave the Lakers no hope. They thought Booker, they thought CP3 were going to get it done. But the Lakers show grit, show heart, show a lot of courage, get the win against the Suns to stay alive for the 6th seed. It still looks very likely that the Lakers are going to end up as the 7th seed and play against the Warriors, which would be a crazy matchup. The 7th seed Lakers against the 8th seeded Warriors. That would be amazing. But let's give the Lakers some credit. They played incredible yesterday. Anthony Davis had his best game of the season. I believe he finished with 42 points. First time he goes over 40 points this season. He was great since the beginning all the way to the end. Played great defense. He had, I believe, like 2 key blocks towards the end of the game. Just all around great play by AD. There's one play at the end of the game that really resonated with me. When there was like a loose ball, Lakers were attacking. They were on the offense, and there was a loose ball, and CP3 and AD are the first ones to like locate the ball, and AD just throws himself at the ground, and that was and not only did he throw himself at the ground and get the ball, he also had the awareness to call a timeout right away so it wouldn't be a jump ball. Even though he probably would have been Chris Paul for it, who was the guy that was there. But still, super smart play by AD to keep the possession. Love the hustle. Love. That was a great play. That got me hyped up. That got me off of my seat. I was like, yeah, let's go, AD. Let's do it. Other than that, the Lakers, they started off hot. I think they started like 7-0, and then they led almost the whole game. The Suns did make a furious comeback. Like in the third quarter, fourth quarter, they brought it down to single digits, but the Lakers did just enough to hold on to the victory. The Lakers are still a game back from the Trailblazers, and they don't have the tiebreaker against the Trailblazers. So it looks like the Lakers are gonna finish in the 7th seed. This stretch of bad play has really hurt the Lakers. Even with this victory, they've only won 3 out of their last 10 games. So it does look like the Lakers are going to finish in the 7th seed. And if that happens, if they beat the Warriors or whoever the 8th seed is and keep that 7th seed, it does look like we would see a Lakers versus Suns first round playoff matchup. And honestly, as a Laker fan, I'm pretty sure there's other Laker fans. I've seen Laker fans on Twitter say that would not be the end of the world. Obviously, one of the downsides of playing in the play-in is that you don't get rest. All the other teams get like 4 or 5. I think some even get 6 days rest from when the season ends to when the regular playoffs start. Obviously, that would be great for the Lakers, especially with an older LeBron and some of the older players. But I think the Lakers would come out of the play-in, either the 7th seed or the 8th seed. I do believe they would come out. I don't see the Lakers losing 2 games to not make the playoffs. So if they do make the 7th seed, they play the Suns. And if they make the 8th seed, they play the Jazz, which they have been the best teams in the NBA. But I think when the playoff comes, I don't think they have the horses. I don't think they have the star players to get it done. So if I'm being honest, I would, as a Laker fan, or even as a neutral, Like if I wasn't a Laker fan, if I was just one of these fans, like of the Warriors, Grizzlies, Spurs, or even the Pelicans, are still kind of alive. If I'm a fan of one of those teams, I would rather see the Jazz and the Suns than the Clippers in the playoffs. So the Clippers did just lose against the Knicks, and we'll touch on that in a little bit. But if I'm one of these teams that are going to be in the play-in scenario, I would rather see the Suns or the Jazz and make them prove it in the playoffs. I know the Clippers choked last year, and I know the Nuggets. They don't have Jamal Murray, but I would still rather see the Suns probably in the Jazz. So I think this was a big victory for the Lakers, not only because it keeps them alive. If they would have lost this game, it's almost done. They're in the play-in right now with 4 games still left. There's still a possibility that the Trailblazers choke. They don't have that good of a defense. They've had some rough stretches too. They're on a 3-game winning streak, so I don't see them falling out of the 6th seed. But there is still a possibility that the Lakers are able to catch up to the Trailblazers and they finish at the 6th seed. And they get those 4 to 6 days extra of rest. But if that's not the case, then I think this victory bodes well for the Lakers. I think we might look back at this victory and think, damn, this was a turning page for the Lakers. Like this is where we saw them kind of turn it around. And okay, after this is when they started playing as a team again. They started hustling for the ball again. Their defense got better. AD found his groove. He's been injured on and off the whole season. It's been frustrating to say the least. I think this might be the turning point. This might be the game that we look back at and we see, damn, the Lakers turned it around after beating the Suns, and now they have all the belief, they have all the momentum going into the playoffs. If a Suns Lakers playoff matchup does happen, I think the Lakers wouldn't be favored. Obviously, the Suns have had a great regular season, but I think the Lakers would not be intimidated. I don't think they would mind that matchup. And the Suns would have a home court advantage. This game was at Staples Center, but I still think the Lakers wouldn't really mind too much playing the Suns as long as everybody's healthy. I'm pretty sure Kuz could have played maybe yesterday, but I think right now the Lakers are just focusing on getting everyone healthy and ready for the playoffs. So overall, big victory by the Lakers. Biggest takeaway from this is AD had his best game all season. If AD is playing elite basketball, if LeBron comes back and he's playing LeBron type of basketball, the Lakers become an instant title contender. So it was nice to see AD get back in the groove, scoring over 40 points, being a menace on defense. Caruso was a menace on defense. There's a lot of hustle plays out there. The Suns, they've been doing pretty good. They came in like winning like 6 or 7 out of their last 10. So it was a good victory by the Lakers. End-to-end game. Like they led from the first quarter. I don't think they ever were behind. So good victory by the Lakers. Also yesterday, the Knicks and the Clippers played on Sunday, and the Knicks take an impressive victory against the Clippers, 106-100. The Clippers started off very hot. They started off with a 10-0 lead on the Knicks, but the Knicks, as they've shown this season, they have a lot of heart. They have a lot of grit. Tom Thibodeau is one of those coaches that's known for his defense. He's known for firing up his players. He's known for having teams that never give up, that they're going to be pests. They're going to be pests from the first quarter to the last quarter. They're going to give you a lot of energy. Some people fault Tom Thibodeau for that type of way. They say that his team's kind of burn out by the time the playoffs get here. We'll see how that plays out this season, but it has to be said that it's working right now for the Knicks. If you're a Knicks fan, this is probably the most excited you've been about your team in a long, long time. I would argue that I would be more excited about this Knicks team than those Carmelo Anthony teams. Yeah, those teams, maybe. I don't know. Those teams, I might be stuck in the present too much, but this team is exciting as a neutral. Seeing the Knicks play and make these comebacks, Derrick Rose getting traded by the Pistons to the Knicks, it's just been a sight to behold. And I enjoy watching Knicks basketball. Let me know what you guys think about the Knicks. If you guys are Knicks fans, let me know. Do you think this is a better team than those Carmelo Anthony teams that made the playoffs? Or is this kind of like a little bit before them? Because I'm very excited about this Knicks team. Like, since they traded for Derrick Rose, they've have a 27-15 record. They're the fourth seed in the East right now, so they could get home field advantage in the first round. And it looks like they're either going to play the Hawks and the Heat. And the Knicks, as they're playing right now, I would not be surprised if they make it to the second round and they give one of these other teams a run for their money. Derrick Rose yesterday was amazing. I love seeing Derrick Rose play. I love seeing Derrick Rose succeed. I love his comeback story. For a second there, it looked like it wasn't going to happen. I know he had like a 50-point game with the Timberwolves, and that was amazing too. But now I think this is the best I've seen Derrick Rose since his little downhill that he had after the Bulls with all those injuries, with the meniscus, with the ACL. I think this is the best I've seen of Derrick Rose. His 3-point shot looks good, which is crazy because I thought he was never going to get it. Or for a second there, it looked like, he's always going to be like a mediocre to below average 3-point shooter, but now he's shooting like above 40. He might be on 41% with the Knicks, and he just looks smooth. He looks silky smooth. He can still get to the rim at will. He still has a good enough burst to accelerate past most defenders, and he just looks calm and composed most of the time when he has the ball. So I love watching Derrick Rose against coming off the bench for the Knicks. Yesterday he had 25 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists. He was the main man for the Knicks. Yesterday. Julius Randle didn't really have too many points yesterday. He finished with 14 points, I believe. And he had 6 in the last 3 minutes. So he had 8 points basically the whole game. Derrick Rose was the one that kept them in the game, brought them back, kept them even keel with the Clippers. But Julius Randle, most improved player of the year, in my opinion. 8 points through 3 quarters and about 9 minutes. And in the last 3 minutes, when the Knicks needed someone to close out the game, Julius Randle shows up, gets 6 points in the last 3 minutes to close out the game. And they were sending anybody that they were sending Batum, they were sending Paul George. They were sending a bunch of people at Julius Randle, and it didn't matter. He got to his spot. He got to that mid-range shot that he's perfected this season, and he came through for them, got them the win. Impressive victory by the Knicks. Man, like if you're a New Yorker, you should be excited. Like, yeah, this is the year of the Nets. Everyone's talking about the Nets, but the Knicks are stealing headline, man. I love watching the Knicks play. They're a fun team to watch. They're like an underdog story, kind of. So like it's fun to root for them. And now the Knicks have a 1-game advantage on the Hawks and the Heat with 4 games left. So we'll see how they're able to finish out the season. The Lakers, the Spurs, the Hornets, and the Celtics are remaining in the Knicks' schedule. So the Lakers might be a little tough. Celtics at the end, tough. Spurs and Hornets are battling for the play-in positions. So it's a kind of rough stretch, but the Celtics, they have a 3-game lead against the Celtics, who are the 7th seed. So if worst comes to worst, I don't think the Knicks will slip into the play-in position. There will be a playoff team this year. There's playoff basketball coming to New York, and that is amazing. So go Knicks. As far as the Clippers go, they're still the 3rd seed. They have a 1-game lead over the Nuggets. The Clippers, they were all healthy. I think the Clippers are still probably the most dangerous team in the Western Conference right now. I think this was just a good game by the Knicks, but the Clippers finished with the Raptors, the Hornets, the Thunder, and the Rockets. So they could run the table. They're probably not going to catch up to the Suns. They have a 3-game advantage on them. So I'm pretty sure the Clippers, at this point in time, they're kind of locked in at the 3 spot. So we'll see who ends up at the 6 between the Mavericks or the Trailblazers. I don't think the Lakers are going to have enough in them to climb out of the 7th seed. So we're either going to see a Clippers Mavericks or Clippers Trailblazers playoff series. I would like to see Clippers Trailblazers. Last year Clippers Mavericks was a great first round matchup, but I think this year I would love to see a Trailblazers versus Clippers PG-13 versus Damian Lillard rematch. I think that would be amazing. So that's what I'm rooting for. I'm rooting for Clippers Trailblazers matchup. I'm not too worried about the Clippers. I don't think this losing to the Knicks is anything to be upset about. The Knicks are a great team. They were in LA though, but the Knicks are a good team, so there's nothing wrong about that. I think the Clippers have been playing good as of late, so it's not a bad thing for the Clippers. I think they might finish 4-0. They might run the table, and they'll be ready for the playoffs. But the Knicks are nice, man. If you guys haven't watched Knicks basketball, they have one of the best commentators. So the whole ambiance of watching Knicks games is nice. I like watching Knicks games, so make sure to catch some Knicks games if you haven't. But also yesterday, the Celtics and the Heat played in a very pivotal game that will determine positioning in the Eastern Conference. The Celtics were behind the Heat. The Celtics came in at 35-32. Heat came in at 36-31. So just a one-game difference. Pivotal game for the Celtics if they want to avoid the play-in. Unfortunately for them, the Heat beat them 130-124. The Heat had a big lead. They led by like 39-20. 53-79 was the halftime score. So they were up 26 at halftime. And as it's customary for the Celtics as of now, they get down early, they fall back, and then they try to make a furious comeback in the third, in the fourth. Sometimes it's enough, but most of the time it's not. They do have very interesting games because they usually always make it a game. They never really lose or get blown out like too bad. They usually always find a way to come back, and then they lose. And now, Celtics fans, if you guys could attest to this, it's even more frustrating because if you're after the game, you're just like, man, if we just didn't start so horribly, we could have beaten these guys. Like we showed in the third and the fourth quarter that we could outscore these guys, that we could play with them, that we're good enough to beat them. But because in the first quarter, in the first 5-10 minutes, we came out dead. We came out with no energy. We came out lackadaisical. We came out just firing up dumb shots, and we fell 20 points. We fell down big. We dug ourselves a hole too big to come overcome. And that was the case again for the Celtics this time. Now with this loss, the Celtics are 2 games back. But luckily for the Celtics, they do play on Tuesday. So this is probably the most important game for the Celtics and the Heat respectively. The Celtics are 2 games behind the Heat, but they're tied 1-1 in the regular season series. So if the Celtics win the game on Tuesday, there will be 1 game back against the Heat, and they will have the tiebreaker. So meaning if they end up tied, the Celtics get tiebreaker and they win. They move up. So for the Heat, who do have a tough schedule, the Heat are 7-3 over the last games, but the Heat finish against the Celtics, the 76ers, and the Bucks. They do finish an easy game against the Pistons, but if the Heat lose to the Celtics and then they lose to the 76ers or the Bucks, just one of them, then they're in trouble if the Celtics run the table. So for the Heat, win this game and you're through. You're on to the playoffs. Basically, you'll have a 3-game advantage against the Celtics. You would have won the season series. So that means it's basically 4 games. So this is a pivotal game on Tuesday, Heat versus Celtics. For the Celtics, if you want to look at positives from the game yesterday, Jason Tatum and Fournier had good games. Jason Tatum had 29 and Fournier had 30. That trade for Fournier is starting to look better and better. I think the Celtics need to re-sign Fournier. He's been great for them. He's been able to give another scorer, especially with Jaylen Brown missing time because of injury. Fournier has been pivotal. He stretched the floor. He can get his points. He looks smooth out there. He looks like he's a great fit for the Celtics. So if I'm the Celtics, I'm re-signing Fournier at the end of the season. But the Celtics need Jaylen Brown to come back. They need Jason Tatum's partner. They need Robin. They got their Batman. They need Robin. They desperately need Jaylen Brown to come, not just because of their defense, but not just because of his offense, but because of his defense. I think if Jaylen Brown is there, you could put him in and he could fill up that hole that the Celtics have on defense right now. They're not an elite defensive team that we have known them for these last few years under Brad Stevens. But for the Heat are 7-3 over their last 10 games. Jimmy Butler finishes with 26 points. Bam Adebayo finishes with 20. Trevor Ariza finishes with 19. Duncan Robinson finishes with 22. So all around, they shared the ball. Everyone got to eat. The Heat spread the ball. Like I said, the Heat look like they're they're catching form right now. Will they be able to go all the way back to the finals? That's still to be seen. But their players are catching form. Jimmy Butler has been great the whole season. Bam too. But Trevor Ariza and his 10th team looks like he's a key contributor for them. Duncan Robinson, that 3-point shot is coming back. Even Tyler Hero had some key moments yesterday where it looked like his 3-point shot was coming back too. So the Heat might be dangerous in the playoffs. Whoever gets the Heat in the first round is going to be a tough series, especially if the Bucks. Right now it's the Bucks versus the Heat. And we know what Bam Adebayo would do to Giannis, especially because Giannis still hasn't really developed a mid-range shot or a 3-point shot. So the Bucks might not want to see the Heat. I think they might rather see the Celtics, especially with Jaylen Brown having a hobbled ankle. But if you took away anything from this game, is that the Celtics keep digging themselves in a hole, and then they make furious comebacks. This time it was not enough. The Heat look like their team is building momentum towards the playoffs. Like I said, 7 out of their last 10 games have been victories. If they beat the Celtics on Tuesday, it is pretty much guaranteed that they will not fall into the play-in spot, and they will be in the playoffs. And as of right now, they could still catch up to the Knicks for the 4th seed, so don't be surprised if the Heat finish top 4 seed. They do have a very tough schedule: 76ers, Celtics, Bucks, and then they finish with the Pistons. But we'll see. It's gonna be a photo finish to the end. Regardless, for the playoff spots, for the play-in spots, I think it's been a great season, especially the end. This end of the regular season has been exciting. It's been great. So tune in to the Heat versus Celtics on Tuesday. That's gonna be a very pivot. There's a lot of pivotal games coming up this week, especially, but Celtics versus Heat might be the most pivotal game in the East. So tune in to that one. And switching along to soccer, Real Madrid versus Sevilla played on Sunday to a 2-2 draw. Super disappointing result if you're a Real Madrid fan. After Atletico and Barcelona tied 0-0 the day before, it left the door wide open for Real Madrid to get a victory against Sevilla and move into first place of La Liga, take control of the La Liga race. And unfortunately for Real Madrid, they tied 2-2 against Sevilla, and they're still chasing Atletico Madrid. But there was a lot of controversy in this game. The game was 1-1, I believe, when Real Madrid looked like they had a counterattack. Benzema against the keeper. He goes around him, draws a penalty. It looks like Sevilla's keeper is going to be sent off. It looks like Real Madrid is about to take a 2-1 lead, and they're going to go top of the table. But then VAR comes, interferes, and they check the previous corner kick in the Real Madrid box. And it shows that Militao, when he was trying to header the ball, he turns his back to the ball. His arm is extended. It hits him in the back of in the forearm, I believe. It might have hit his shoulder and then his forearm. And then that kind of sparked the Real Madrid counterattack, 1 or 2 rebounds after that. And when VAR checked it, they take the goal. They take the penalty away from Real Madrid. They take the possible red card away from the Sevilla goalkeeper. And they give a penalty to Sevilla. Rakitic steps up, 2-1 Sevilla. What a change of event. And this would not be so upsetting. Obviously, there was some contact of the ball in the hand. And the way it's been called throughout Europeans' top 5 leagues this season, all right, that does have merit for a penalty. That's not why Real Madrid fans are kind of super upset. The reason they're upset is because earlier in the game, there's a similar play where the Sevilla defender goes up in a manner where he could kind of tell what he's doing more. He's more aware of what he's doing. And the ball hits him in the forearm in front of his body. So he's able to see where the ball is coming, and the ball hits him in the forearm. He kind of turns a little bit, but it's in front of him. And they don't call that a penalty. It's kind of away from his body, kind of hits him right here, and then it deflects off him. And for that one, VAR didn't interfere. The ref didn't look at it. Maybe Real Madrid should have protested it a little harder. But that one just gets completely ignored. No one from up top calls the referee, just, hey, you know what, take a look at this possible penalty. And then with the Militao one, that one gets called a penalty, and it just seems like it was super unfair decision by the referee. It didn't look like they were calling the game equally. It looked like it kind of felt like they had an agenda against Real Madrid. Luckily for Real Madrid, they get a deflection goal in like the 93rd minute. They're able to tie the game 2-2, so they don't drop all 3 points. They're able to salvage 1 point, so they stay tied with Barcelona in points. Real Madrid has 75, Barcelona 75. Real Madrid has the tiebreaker, so they're ahead of them. Atletico Madrid has 77, so they're 2 points ahead of Real Madrid. If Atletico Madrid tie a game and Real Madrid wins out, Real Madrid would still be the champions. So we'll see how this La Liga race finishes. But back to the point, the Militao penalty, a similar situation, I believe, happened against Atletico Madrid, where Real Madrid was calling for a penalty. Almost the same situation. Ball hits the defender while he's turning in the back, and the same call doesn't get called for Real Madrid. So it just seems like it low-key feels like the La Liga is conspiring against Real Madrid for them not to win the league. It has still been said that Real Madrid and Barcelona and Juventus still want to push with the plans to make the European Super League happen. So the rumors that are going around that La Liga is conspiring against Real Madrid for them not to win La Liga, they might have some merit to them, just because La Liga probably does not want Real Madrid to win, because they're one of the teams that, all three of the teams wanted to be in the European Super League, but Real Madrid has Florentino Perez, who was like the driving force behind the European Super League, and he's the driving force behind them still trying to make this league happen. So it would not surprise me if La Liga is trying to punish Real Madrid in a low-key but not so low-key way. And it just seemed like this was a super unfair decision. I think the right decision, once that first penalty didn't get checked, once that one didn't get called for VAR, I think what should have happened is this Militao one is like, okay, it's similar. It hit his hand. He's not looking. Let's just let it go. But I think the ref was in a tough position, if I'm being 100% transparent. If that Militao handball didn't happen, or like if it happened and if the play just finished on let's say like a Sevilla throw-in, or like a Real Madrid throw-in, or a Real Madrid kick, then maybe the ref doesn't call the penalty. But because Real Madrid got the counter tag that led to a Real Madrid penalty of their own, and it probably was going to lead to a goalkeeper send-off, then at that point, that's probably why he called the penalty. He's like, whoa, like me not calling this penalty has super consequential results on the other side. It's not just like, if I don't call this penalty, it's going to be a throw-in for Real Madrid, and it's not the end of the world. It's like, if I don't call this penalty, I got to call a penalty on the other side, and Sevilla are probably going to go down a man. So because of that, I think that's why he was forced to call that penalty. Still super sketchy. Still seems like they had it out for Real Madrid. I am glad that Real Madrid played with some heart. They played with some... After the penalty, it did look like nothing was going to happen, but when they tied the game 1-1, it did look like Real Madrid was going to be the team to score that second goal first. So I was happy to see that from Real Madrid. They played with some urgency, much different than the game midweek against Chelsea. That game against Chelsea was embarrassing. I don't know what Zidane was trying with that back five line. I don't know where their hearts were in it or not. It just looked like they were comfortable just maybe going for a 0-0 at the Chelsea Stadium sorry, I'm fumbling the name, but it just looked like they weren't eager to go look for the game. It looked like they were content with just, showing up, and like if something happened, like, all right, cool. But they did show some urgency against Sevilla, so I was glad to see that. And we'll see how this La Liga race finishes. It's been a crazy season. It's going to be a crazy finish. Hopefully, as a Real Madrid fan, I hope that Atletico Madrid loses points. Their form has been up and down all season. And I'm just happy to see another team being in the race too. This kind of takes Sevilla out of the race. If they would have won, they would have gone up to 73. They would have been 4 points behind, still had an outside shot Now with 3 games left, 6 points behind is looking very rough for Sevilla. But they had a great season, so shout out for Sevilla. They're not responsible for the ref's decision. And for Real Madrid, at least they got a tie, and it wasn't a loss. The Wolves came back against Brighton to win 2-1. Brighton took the lead early in a header. Wolves just looked terrible defending headers throughout the game. Throughout the first half especially, there was like a series of like 3 free kicks back to back to back where every single corner kick was ending with a shot on goal, or it was ending with a Brighton player headering the ball. And that was very concerning because it just looked like any corner kick that Brighton had, Wolves were unable to defend. Thankfully, as a Wolves fan, the Wolves were able to come back. I was glad about when I saw the lineup. I was glad that Kilman got some playing time. I think he should have gotten more throughout the season. It was nice to see Hover get a start at the right back. Out-Nari starting at left back again. And then Vitinha, obviously he was man of the match the last game. He got to start again. Gibbs White. I've been a fan of Gibbs White, so it was nice to see him start. Fabio Silva, he played with a lot of energy. It looks like he's getting stronger, and he might be getting a little faster. So I'm really liking the improvement that Fabio Silva is having. But onto this game, it's a tale of two halves. Wolves kind of started good the first 5-10 minutes, and then the Brighton goal came on, and then they kind of fell flat. They did come out in the second half with a lot of energy. I thought Gibbs White was gonna score a goal in the bottom left corner of the goalkeeper. Good save by Sanchez. He sent it to a corner kick. But it looked like Real Madrid. I looked like Wolves were on the up and coming. It looked like they were gonna have a good second half. And then Dunk, the goal scorer for Brighton on the header, he gets a dumb red card. Fabio Silva is played on through by Vitinha, and he pulls him. Dumb foul. He like the commentator said, Silva still had a lot to do. He was still probably like 20 meters from the goalkeeper. So, he had to keep composure. He had to keep his dribble going, and the goalkeeper was probably going to close him out. It was going to be a one-on-one situation, but it wasn't like the easiest one-on-one situation. Dunk decides to pull his jersey, and Brighton lose a man. After that, it was all Wolves. Wolves were down 1-0, and it just looked like the goal was going to come. And it did with, who's the goal scorer? It was Traore. Beautiful link-up play by Traore and Silva. Traore looked dangerous the whole game. I was happy to see him have an impact on the game. And Silva's link-up play is really improving as the season has gone on. He's starting to justify his 35 million or 35 million euros, whatever it was, price tag. He's definitely developing as the season is going on. So very excited for Silva. I think he has a bright future. He's 18 years old. So I think the sky is the limit. They say strikers don't hit their peak till 26 to like 29. So in 10 years, Silva will be in his peak, and he's already like showing some dividends. He's already showing that he's capable of playing at this level. So I'm very excited to see how Fabio Silva turns out. But this last half of the season, this last third of the season, he's been very impressive. And like I said, Wolves had an extra man. They were the ones proposing the teams. They were going for the win. Brighton had a very bad play where they're trying to play the ball back to the keeper. They leave it short. Traore intercepts the ball. It's a tight angle. He probably could have shot to goal, and he might have scored. He decides to cut it back, gives it to Morgan Gibbs White, and Gibbs White skies it and misses everything. He doesn't even get on target. He skies it, and it just looks like it was going to be a 1-1 tie. You see Nuno's reaction. He's super frustrated. He's like, he can't believe that Gibbs White wasn't able to finish that. But soccer's funny sometimes. Gibbs White gets his revenge. Beautiful play, beautiful run by Out-Nari on the left side. He shimmies, he gets a player leaning, he goes to the touchline, gets a ball, gets a cross in, it deflects off a Brighton player, and it falls for Gibbs White. His first shot gets blocked, the rebound sits perfectly for him. He puts it on the top right corner, he finishes it. One of the Wolves homegrown players gets the winner. Wolves win 2-1. It was an exciting game. Shout out to the Wolves for getting the victory. Shout out for Gibbs White for not giving up, for not going too down on themselves, for scoring the game winner and making up the open goal shot that he missed. The ball was bouncing a little bit, so we got to forgive him a little bit, but I'm glad that he got his first Premier League goal. Like I said, he's a homegrown talent, Gibbs White. He gets a lot of slack from the fans, so I'm very happy for him for getting this game winner. And I'm happy for the Wolves because this overall was a very promising game. It was a very promising result, and it was a fun game to watch for the Wolves. And if I'm being honest, not too many of their games this year have been fun to watch, where you're just happy to be watching football. You're not just happy to be watching Wolves football because you're a Wolves fan. Like, you're just thoroughly enjoying the game. This was one of those games where you thoroughly, especially the second half, you thoroughly were enjoying the game. There was chances. They looked like they were playing with a lot of intensity. So I thoroughly enjoyed this game. I'm really enjoying what I see from Silva, from Gibbs White, from Vitinha, from Kilman, from Hover, from Outnery. We'll see how many of these loanies we keep. I think Vitinha we got to keep no matter what. I hope we don't loan Gibbs White out. I hope we keep him in the roster next year. We do got to build a deeper squad with larger pool players. This small squad thing has shown that it doesn't work. And if we do transition to a back four, we do got to get another starting center back, caliber starting center back. And we got to move on for some players. But overall, the Wolves win. The Wolves could still finish with 54 points on the season, which would be a great result, which would be extraordinary considering all the injuries, playing without Raul Jimenez, the lack of form that we had in the middle of the season. If the Wolves run the table, they would still finish with 54 points, I believe, which would be a great output, which would be a great season. So we'll see if they're able to do it. But overall, they showed heart. They came back from a 2-1 deficit, and it was a positive game. Everything said, it was a positive game. Chelsea and City also played this weekend in a preview of the Champions League final. Chelsea come back and beat City 2-1. It looks like Thomas Tuchel has Pep Guardiola's number right now. He beat him in the semifinal of the League Cup. I believe he beat him in the first fixture in the Premier League. He beats him again, and now we'll see if he beats him in the Champions League final, then Tuchel for manager of the year. But overall, it was a great game. It was intense. It was fun. I'm pretty sure both managers didn't put their best lineup. They didn't want to, show all their cards. They didn't want to play the lineup they're probably going to use in the Champions League final. And I think that was to be expected. We saw Kun Agüero get some playing time. We saw Gilmore start for Chelsea. We saw Marco Alonso start. Cisse started. Pulisic started. For City, Laporte, Ake, Diaz. So not the usual starting center backs. Rudy played. So overall, this was not the starting lineup that we're gonna see in the Champions League final. So you got to take the result with a grain of salt. I'm pretty sure both coaches held back. They didn't want to show all their cards, given that City most likely is gonna win the league, regardless of this result. And Chelsea, it was a more important game for Chelsea, but they're pretty much, I think they're going to finish top four. They're going to finish in the Champions League spot. So I think both coaches did not want to show all their cards. They didn't want to show the other coach like everything they got. But it was a very entertaining game. Sterling gets the goal to open it. Kun Agüero had 2 chances to score in this game. In Sterling's goal, Kun Agüero could either hit it first time and score a goal, or I think he tried to take a touch to score on the second touch, but he had a horrible first touch. Sterling was running, and he just pushed it in for him instead of Kun Agüero. And then right before the half, when City was up 1-0, Kun Agüero, I think Jesus drew a penalty. Kun Agüero steps up to make it 2-0 right before halftime. We don't know how many more goals Kun Agüero is going to score for City. We don't know how much more playing time he's going to score for City. This could have been the last chance for Kun Agüero to score a goal. Probably the last penalty he's going to take with Chelsea. And Kun Agüero steps up and he tries to do the Panenka and he completely flops it. Mendy stops the shot. And Kun Agüero is left embarrassed. It feels like it feels like this might be the last we see of Kun Agüero. I don't know how many more playing time he's gonna get. Pep Guardiola did look very, very upset. He was like, "What is this man doing?" Like his reaction in the sideline was pretty funny. And Kun Agüero did apologize after the game, saying like, "Oh, my bad for doing that," because he basically cost them the game. If they wouldn't have been up 2-0, then I don't know how much. Chelsea still playing with a lot of heart, so they might have still tied it. But 2-0 right before the half would have been like a knockout punch, or it would have demoralized Chelsea right before the half. But in the second half, Chelsea played really well. Cesc scored the tying goal, 1-1, second goal of the season. Good job for him. Hopefully he picks up his form a little bit. Hopefully this gets him feeling good about himself, and he's able to really live up to that price tag that he came from Ajax, I believe. And then Alonso scores the winner in the 93rd minute. This was very controversial too, because right before Alonso scores the game-winning goal, I believe Sterling got into the Chelsea box, and Rudiger, was it Rudiger or was it? Yeah, it was Rudiger, right? Or no, Suma. Suma is right behind Sterling, and he's clumsy. It looks like he's very clumsy. It looks like he clips Sterling, and he's trying to keep his distance from him. He's trying to not knock him down, but it looks like he gets a decent amount of contact with Sterling. Sterling falls to the ground. Mendy comes and picks up the ball, and they call nothing. They don't call a penalty. Pep is going crazy. He's talking to all the sideline referees. He's being very, very like animated on his thing. And 2 minutes later, Alonso gets the game-winning goal, and Pep gets even more mad. So overall, it was a great game. I think Conte showed his class. He's a world-class player. Cesc, it was good to see him get on the scoreline. Alonso keeps proving how good he is going forward. He has an eye for getting in the box and scoring. Agüero, very embarrassing. If this is the last we see of Agüero with City, I think it would be disappointing. It would be a sad way to go out for Agüero. Hopefully, for his sake, he gets a little bit of playing time in the Champions League final or something, and they're able to lift the trophy. But overall, it was a very fun game. It was an entertaining game. I enjoyed watching it. But Chelsea basically secured a Champions League spot with this victory. And Thomas Tuchel keeps on showing how good of a coach he is. No offense to Lampard, but Tuchel has completely changed his team. He has them in the final of the Champions League. He got them to a Champions League spot in the Premier League. He's in the final of the League Cup. So just great stuff by Thomas Tuchel. He's in play for getting a double. He could get the FA Cup, he could get the Champions League, and he could finish in the top 4 spot in the Premier League, and I think that would be amazing. Coach of the year, he pulls that off. And for PSG, they let him go and they replaced him with Pochettino, and now it looks like PSG is not going to win the French league for the first time in a while. I believe they've won like 6 or 7 straight. So they might have messed up, and one man's trash is another man's treasure. I think Chelsea really hit it with Tuchel. I think I don't know if it's been released yet, but I think there's rumors that they're getting ready to re-sign him. I think they just signed him for this season when they signed him halfway through the season. So I would not be surprised if they give him like a 3 to 5 year extension. He's more than earned it. And Chelsea, if Chelsea continues this form going into next year, they could be real title contenders. The title contenders that we thought they were going to be this year, they could be that type of title contender next year, especially with Tuchel. The first thing he did was switch to a back 3 with 3 center backs, and I think that's provided so much stability for Chelsea, not just in the back but going forward. I think players go up and join the attack with more confidence, with more at peace. They're more at peace going forward because they know that their defense is so solid. Mendy has been a key signing too. I believe he was there when Lampard was there, but he's been great. He's one of the best keepers in the Premier League. Overall, though, great game. I'm excited to see the Champions League final. I hope there were some people saying that Chelsea didn't have what it takes to compete against City in the Champions League final. I think they do. I think it's going to be an interesting game, and I'm very excited to see how that plays out. But to finish off, DK Metcalf competes in the 100-meter preliminaries. He does decently enough. He finishes with a 10.37 time, 10 seconds, 0.37. He finished 9th in his heat, so last place in his heat. He finished 15th among out of the 17th that who competed in the U.S. Track and Field Golden Games, in the Distance Open in Walnut, California. My takeaway from this is DK Metcalf. I'm very impressed by your speed, but I'm more impressed by, your determination and, not being embarrassed. Like, he could have, 10:37 was really good. He could have done way worse than this and got embarrassed. He didn't finish. He finished last on his heat, but he didn't finish last overall. And all these people, that's all they do. They just train to be runners. This is their main sport. This is all they do. They dedicate their whole lives basically to this. And for DK Metcalf, who's a professional NFL player, professional football player, to start training for a couple months and not finish last and not get destroyed out there, I think it just shows how much of an athlete he is. But that being said, 10:37, he wasn't close to finishing in a spot that would have gotten him into the Olympics. Because there is some people are really using hyperbole and saying that if he trains for a year or something, he could probably qualify to the Olympics. I think maybe he's really quick, and maybe if you give him a year, he'll finish a little closer. But I think he's just not built to be a sprinter at an Olympics. That takes nothing away from him. He's still a world-class athlete, and I think he has the potential to be elite wide receiver. He's already a really good wide receiver. He could push to be the best or the second best wide receiver in the NFL, and he's a specimen, especially because for him to be running at that weight, at that height, is impressive, and it's super, super impressive. Don't take anything away from that, but there is levels to this, and these people are freak athletes too. Don't just think that NFL athletes are the only freak athletes out there. These guys are freak athletes too, and they wouldn't be able to take hits in the NFL like DK Metcalf does. So it's they all have their things that they're really good at. They all have their trade, and I think it was just ballsy by DK Metcalf. Like he said, he was not afraid to get embarrassed. He was not afraid to fail, and I think that's the thing I'm most impressed about DK Metcalf, that he was not afraid to fail. He wanted to try it. It was a dream of his to try to get into the Olympics, to compete at that level, and he competed. And yeah, he finished 15th out of 17th, but I think it was very impressive. And I think I'll use that in my personal life just to be motivation. Whenever I want to try something that I might be good at, but I don't know how good I really am, to not be afraid to compete with the elite players or the elite people. You never know. And DK Metcalf just shows a lot of heart. And if I was a Seahawks fan, if I'm a fan of the NFL, I think this just makes me more of a fan of DK Metcalf. It just shows his competitiveness. It just shows how much of a competitor he is. He just loves to compete. He's a competitor. He knows he's a good runner. He wanted to see how good he was against the other ones, against the best in the world. He's not there, but at least now he knows he got that itch. He got that itch out of his body. He completed something that he wanted to complete, and you always got to applaud someone for doing that. So shout out for DK Metcalf. Now the thing I'm curious about, if this gets other NFL players to maybe try to do this too. I'm thinking Tyreek Hill or anybody else, Ted Ginn Jr. on his day, or anybody. But DK Metcalf, this was fun. It was fun to see. It got the sport of track and field a lot of headlines because everybody was covering this. All the NFL media outlets were talking about this. I saw it a lot on Twitter. So it gave track and field a good spotlight. It gave him a lot of TV time. So I think this is good for the sport. Obviously DK Metcalf was not trying to. He's fast enough to where he's not trying to embarrass the sport, or he's not doing this just for publicity. He legit thought that he could beat them, that he could compete. We saw that he's not there, but I don't think this was an insult to track and field. He's a legit athlete, and he honestly wanted to try. He came out short, but props to DK Metcalf for trying. And now this got me a little bit more into track and field. I kind of want to watch a little bit more. So if that's, I'm sure some people took that away from this too. So shout out for DK Metcalf for getting track and field some attention. But that should wrap it up for episode 46 of the Hard to Handle Sports Podcast. The NBA season is finishing up, so keep up with that. Should be dropping a podcast soon talking about how this season concludes. Also, the Champions League finals coming up, and yeah, we'll see what else happens in the NFL offseason. Something seems to be popping off every single week. So just tune into the podcast. Thank you so much for supporting. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. I am out.